Section 20 of the Book of Household Management. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Tracy Datlin. The Book of Household Management by Isabella Beeton. Recipes, Chapter 10, Part 1. Sauces, pickles, gravies, and forcemeats. Anchovy sauce for fish, 362. Ingredients: 4 anchovies, 1 ounce of butter, 1/2 pint of melted butter, cayenne to taste. Mode: bone the anchovies and pound them in a mortar to a paste with 1 ounce of butter. Make the melted butter hot. Stir in the pounded anchovies and cayenne. Simmer for 3 or 4 minutes, and, if liked, add a squeeze of lemon juice. A more general and expeditious way of making this sauce is to stir in 1½ tablespoonfuls of anchovy essence to 1/2 pint of melted butter, and to add seasoning to taste. Boil the whole up for 1 minute, and serve hot. Time, 5 minutes. Average cost, 5d for a 1/2 pint. Sufficient, this quantity, for a brill, small turbot, 3 or 4 soles, etc. Anchovy butter. See number 227. Illustration: the capsicum. Cayenne. This is the most acrid and stimulating spice with which we are acquainted. It is a powder prepared from several varieties of the capsicum annual East India plants, of which there are 3 so far naturalized in this country as to be able to grow in the open air. These are the guinea, the cherry, and the bell pepper. All the pods of these are extremely pungent to taste, and in the green state are used by us as a pickle. When ripe, they are ground into cayenne pepper and sold as a condiment. The best of these, however, is made in the West Indies, from what is called the bird pepper, on account of hens and turkeys being extremely partial to it. It is imported ready for use. Of the capsicum species of plants there are 5, but the principals are Capsicum annuum, the common long-potted capsicum, which is cultivated in our gardens, and of which there are 2 varieties, one with red and another with yellow fruit. 2. Capsicum baccatum, or bird pepper, which rises with a shrubbery stalk 4 or 5 feet high, with its berries growing at the division of the branches. This is small, oval-shaped, and of a bright red color, from which, as we have said, the best cayenne is made. 3. Capsicum grossum, the bell pepper. The fruit of this is red, and is the only kind fit for pickling. Apple sauce for geese, pork, etc. 363. Ingredients: 6 good-sized apples, sifted sugar to taste, a piece of butter the size of a walnut, water. Mode: pare, core, and quarter the apples, and throw them into cold water to preserve their whiteness. Put them in a saucepan with sufficient water to moisten them, and boil till soft enough to pulp. Beat them up, adding sugar to taste, and a small piece of butter. This quantity is sufficient for a good-sized tureen. Time, according to the apples, about 3/4 hour. Average cost, 4d. Sufficient this quantity for a goose or a couple of ducks. Brown apple sauce, 364. Ingredients: 6 good-sized apples, 1/2 pint of brown gravy, cayenne to taste. Mode: put gravy in the stewpan and add the apples, after having pared, cored, and quartered them. Let them simmer gently till tender. Beat them to a pulp and season with cayenne. This sauce is preferred by many to the preceding. Time, according to the apples, about 3/4 hour. Average cost, 6d. Asparagus sauce, 365. Ingredients: 1 bunch of green asparagus, salt, 1 ounce of fresh butter, 1 small bunch of parsley, 3 or 4 green onions, 1 large lump of sugar, 4 tablespoonfuls of sauce tournée. Mode: Break the asparagus in the tender part. Wash well, and put them into boiling salt and water to render them green. When they are tender, take them out and put them into cold water. Drain them on a cloth till all moisture is absorbed from them. Put the butter in a stewpan with the parsley and onions. Lay in the asparagus. Fry the whole over a sharp fire for 5 minutes. Add salt, the sugar and sauce tournée, and simmer for another 5 minutes. Rub all through a tammy, and if not very good color, use a little spinach green. This sauce should be rather sweet. Time altogether 40 minutes. Average cost for this quantity 1 shilling 4d. Aspic or ornamental savory jelly 366. Ingredients: 4 pounds of knuckle of veal, 1 cow heel, 3 or 4 slices of ham, any poultry trimmings, 2 carrots, 1 onion, 1 faggot of savory herbs, 1 glass of sherry, 3 quarts water, seasoning to taste of salt and whole white pepper, 3 eggs. Mode: lay ham on the bottom of a stewpan, cut up the veal and cow heel into small pieces, and lay them on the ham. Add the poultry trimmings, vegetables, herbs, sherry, and water, and let the whole simmer very gently for 4 hours, carefully taking away all scum that may rise to the surface. Strain through a fine sieve and pour into an earthen pan to cool. Have ready a clean stewpan, and be particular to leave the sediment behind, or it will not be clear. Add the whites of 3 eggs with salt and pepper, to clarify. Keep stirring over the fire till the whole becomes very white, then draw it to the side and let it stand till clear. When this is the case, strain it through a cloth or jelly bag, and use it for molding poultry, etc. See Explanation of French Terms, page 44. Tarragon vinegar may be added to give an additional flavor. Time altogether 4½ hours. Average cost for this quantity 4 shillings. White pepper. This is the produce of the same plant as that which produces the black pepper, from which it is manufactured by steeping this in lime and water, and rubbing it between the hands till the coats come off. The best berries only will bear this operation, hence superior qualities of white pepper fetch a higher price than those of the other. It is less acrid than the black, and is much prized among the Chinese. It is sometimes adulterated with rice flour, as the black is with burnt bread. The berries of the pepper plant grow in spikes from 20 to 30, and are, when ripe, of a bright red color. After being gathered, which is done when they are green, they are spread out in the sun, where they dry and become black and shriveled, when they are ready for being prepared for the market. Bechamel or French white sauce 367. Ingredients: 1 small bunch of parsley, 2 cloves, 1/2 bay leaf, 1 small faggot of savory herbs, salt to taste, 3 or 4 mushrooms when obtainable, 2 pints of white stock, 1 pint of cream, 1 tablespoonful of arrowroot. Mode: put the stock into a stewpan with the parsley, cloves, bay leaf, herbs, and mushrooms. Add a seasoning of salt, but no pepper, as that would give the sauce a dusty appearance, and should be avoided. When it has boiled long enough to extract the flavor of the herbs, etc., strain it, and boil it up quickly again, until it is nearly half reduced. Now mix the arrowroot smoothly with the cream, and let it simmer very gently for 5 minutes over a slow fire. Pour it to the reduced stock, and continue to simmer it slowly for 10 minutes if the sauce be thick. If, on the contrary, it be too thin, it must be stirred over a sharp fire till it thickens. This is the foundation of many kinds of sauces, especially white sauces. Always make it thick, as you can easily thin it with cream, milk, or white stock. Time altogether 2 hours. Average cost 1 shilling per pint. Illustration: the clove. The clove. The clove tree is a native of the Molucca Islands, particularly Amboyna. It attains the height of the laurel tree, and no verdure is ever seen under it. From the extremities of the branches quantities of flowers grow, first white, then they become green, and next red and hard when they have arrived at their clove state. When they become dry they assume a yellowish hue, which subsequently changes into a dark brown. As an aromatic, the clove is highly stimulating and yields an abundance of oil. There are several varieties of the clove. The best is called the royal clove, which is scarce, and which is blacker and smaller than the other kinds. It is a curious fact that the flowers, when fully developed, are quite inodorous, and that the real fruit is not in the least aromatic. The form is that of a nail having a globular head, formed of the 4 petals of the corolla, and the 4 leaves of the calyx not expanded, with nearly cylindrical germen, scarcely an inch in length, situate below. Bechamel maigre, or without meat. 368. Ingredients: 2 onions, 1 blade of mace, mushroom trimmings, a small bunch of parsley, 1 ounce of butter, flour, 1/2 pint of water, 1 pint of milk, salt, the juice of 1 lemon, 2 eggs. Put in a stewpan the milk and 1/2 pint of water, with the onions, mace, mushrooms, parsley, and salt. Let these simmer gently for 20 minutes. In the meantime, rub on a plate 1 ounce of the flour and butter. Put it to the liquor and stir it well till it boils up. Then place it by the side of the fire and continue stirring until it is perfectly smooth. Now strain it through a sieve into a basin, after which put it back in the stewpan and add the lemon juice. Beat up the yolks of the eggs with about 4 dessertspoonfuls of milk. Strain this to the sauce. Keep stirring it over the fire, but do not let it boil, lest it curdle. Time altogether 3/4 hour. Average cost 5d. per pint. This is a good sauce to pour over boiled fowls when they are a bad color. Pickled beetroot. 369. Ingredients: sufficient vinegar to cover the beets, 2 ounces of whole pepper, 2 ounces of allspice to each gallon of vinegar. Mode: wash the beets free from dirt, and be very careful not to prick the outside skin, or they would lose their beautiful color. Put them into boiling water. Let them simmer gently, and when about 3 parts done, which will be in 1½ hour, take them out and let them cool. Boil the vinegar with pepper and allspice in the above proportion for 10 minutes, and when cold, pour it on the beets, which must be peeled and cut into slices about 1/2 inch thick. Cover with bladder to exclude the air, and in a week they will be fit for use. Average cost 3 shillings per gallon. Illustration: black pepper. Black pepper. This well-known aromatic spice is the fruit of a species of climbing vine, and is a native of the East Indies, and is extensively cultivated in Malabar and the eastern islands of Borneo, Sumatra, and Java, and others in the same latitude. It was formerly confined to these countries, but it has now been introduced to Cayenne. It is generally employed as a condiment, but should never be forgotten that, even in small quantities, it produces detrimental effects on inflammatory constitutions. Dr. Paris, in his work on diet, says, "Foreign spices were not intended by nature for the inhabitants of temperate climes. They are heating and highly stimulant. I am, however, not anxious to give more weight to this objection than it deserves. Man is no longer the child of nature, nor the passive inhabitant of any particular region. He ranges over every part of the globe and elicits nourishment for the productions of every climate. Nature is very kind in favoring the growth of those productions which are most likely to answer our local wants. Those climates, for instance, which engender endemic diseases, are, in general, congenial to the growth of plants that operate as antidotes to them. But if we go to the East for tea, there is no reason we should not go to the West for sugar. The dyspeptic invalid, however, should be cautious in their use. They may afford temporary benefit at the expense of permanent mischief. It has been well said that the best quality of spices is to stimulate the appetite, and their worst to destroy by insensible degrees the tone of the stomach. The intrinsic goodness of meats should always be suspected when they require spicy seasonings to compensate for their natural want of sapidity. The quality of pepper is known by rubbing it between the hands. That which withstands this operation is good. That which is reduced to powder by it is bad. The quantity of pepper imported into Europe is very great. Beeton sauce, to serve with hot or cold roast beef. 370. Ingredients: 1 tablespoonful of scraped horseradish, 1 teaspoonful of made mustard, 1 teaspoonful of pound sugar, 4 teaspoonfuls of vinegar. Mode: grate or scrape the horseradish very fine, and mix it with the other ingredients, which must be all well blended together. Serve in a tureen. With cold meat this sauce is a very good substitute for pickles. Average cost for this quantity, 2d. Bread sauce, to serve with roast turkey, fowl, game, etc. 1. 371. Ingredients: 1 pint of milk, 3/4 of the crumb of a stale loaf, 1 onion, pounded mace, cayenne, salt to taste, 1 ounce of butter. Mode: peel and quarter the onion and simmer it in the milk till perfectly tender. Break the bread, which should be stale, into small pieces, carefully picking out any hard outside pieces. Put it in a very clean saucepan. Strain the milk over it, cover it up, and let it remain for an hour to soak. Now beat it up with a fork very smoothly, and add a seasoning of pounded mace, cayenne, and salt, with 1 ounce of butter. Give the whole one boil, and serve. To enrich this sauce, a small quantity of cream may be added just before sending it to table. Time altogether, 1¾ hour. Average cost for this quantity, 4d. Sufficient to serve with a turkey, pair of fowls, or brace of partridges. Illustration: mace. Mace. This is the membrane which surrounds the shell of the nutmeg. Its general qualities are the same as those of the nutmeg, producing an agreeable aromatic odor with a hot and acrid taste. It is of an oleaginous nature, is yellowish in its hue, and is used largely as a condiment. In Beeton's dictionary we find that the 4 largest of the Banda Islands produced 150,000 pounds of it annually, which, with nutmegs, are their principal articles of export. 2. 372. Ingredients: giblets of poultry, 3/4 pound of the crumb of a stale loaf, 1 onion, 12 whole peppers, 1 blade of mace, salt to taste, 2 tablespoonfuls of cream or melted butter, 1 pint of water. Mode: put the giblets, with head, neck, legs, etc., into a stewpan. Add the onion, pepper, mace, salt, and rather more than 1 pint of water. Let this simmer for an hour, when strain the liquor over the bread, which should be previously grated or broken into small pieces. Cover up the saucepan and leave it for an hour by the side of the fire. Then beat the sauce up with a fork until no lumps remain, and the whole is nice and smooth. Let it boil for 3 or 4 minutes. Keep it stirring until it is rather thick, when add 3 tablespoonfuls of good melted butter or cream, and serve very hot. Time 2¼ hours. Average cost, 6d. 2. 372. Ingredients: giblets of poultry, 3/4 pound of the crumb of a stale loaf, 1 onion, 12 whole peppers, 1 blade of mace, salt to taste, 2 tablespoons of cream or melted butter, 1 pint of water. Mode: put the giblets, with the head, neck, legs, etc., into a stewpan. Add the onion, pepper, mace, salt, and rather more than 1 pint of water. Let this simmer for an hour, when strain the liquor over the bread, which should be previously grated or broken into small pieces. Cover up the saucepan, and leave it for an hour by the side of the fire. Then beat the sauce up with a fork until no lumps remain, and the whole is nice and smooth. Let it boil for 3 or 4 minutes. Keep stirring it until it is rather thick, and add 3 tablespoonfuls of good melted butter or cream and serve very hot. Time, 2 1/4 hours. Average cost, 6d. 373. The browning for soups. See No. 108. Answers equally well for sauces and gravies, when it is absolutely necessary to color them in this manner, but where they can be made to look brown by using ketchup, wine, browned flour, tomatoes, or any color sauce, it is far preferable. As, however, in cooking, so much depends on appearance, perhaps it would be as well for the inexperienced cook to use the artificial means. No. 108. When no browning is at hand, and you wish to heighten the color of your gravy, dissolve a lump of sugar in an iron spoon over a sharp fire. When it is in a liquid state, drop it into the sauce or gravy quite hot. Care, however, must be taken not to put in too much, as it would impart a very disagreeable flavor. 374. Ingredients: 1/4 pound of butter, 1 tablespoonful of minced parsley, 3 tablespoonfuls of vinegar, salt and pepper to taste. Mode: put the butter into a frying pan over a nice clear fire, and when it smokes, throw in the parsley and add the vinegar and seasoning. Let the whole simmer for a minute or two, when it is ready to serve. This is a very good sauce for skate. Time, 1/4 hour. Clarified butter. 375. Put the butter in a basin before the fire, and when it melts, stir it round once or twice, and let it settle. Do not strain it unless absolutely necessary, as it causes too much waste. Pour off gently into a clean dry jar, carefully leaving all sediment behind. Let it cool, and carefully exclude the air by means of a bladder, or piece of wash leather tied over. If the butter is salt, it may be washed before melting, when it is to be used for sweet dishes. Melted butter, 1. 376. Ingredients: 1/4 pound of butter, a dessertspoonful of flour, 1 wineglassful of water, salt to taste. Mode: cut the butter up into small pieces, put it in a saucepan, dredge over the flour, and add the water and a seasoning of salt. Stir it one way, constantly, till the whole of the ingredients are melted and thoroughly blended. Let it just boil, when it is ready to serve. If the butter is to be melted with cream, use the same quantity as of water, but omit the flour. Keep stirring it, but do not allow it to boil. Time, 1 minute to simmer. Average cost for this quantity, 4d. 2. More economical. 377. Ingredients: 2 ounces of butter, 1 dessertspoonful of flour, salt to taste, 1/2 pint of water. Mode: mix the flour and water to a smooth batter, which put into a saucepan. Add the butter and a seasoning of salt. Keep stirring, one way, till all the ingredients are melted and perfectly smooth. Let the whole boil for a minute or two, and serve. Time, 2 minutes to simmer. Average cost for this quantity, 2d. Melted butter. The French sauce blanche. 378. Ingredients: 1/4 pound of fresh butter, 1 tablespoonful of flour, salt to taste, 1/2 gill of water, 1/2 spoonful of white sugar, a very little grated nutmeg. Mode: mix the flour and water into a smooth batter, carefully rubbing down with the back of a spoon any lumps that may appear. Put it in a saucepan with all the other ingredients, and let it thicken on the fire, but do not allow it to boil, lest it should taste of the flour. Time, 1 minute to simmer. Average cost, 5d for this quantity. Illustration: the nutmeg. Nutmeg. This is a native of the Moluccas, and was long kept from being spread in other places by the monopolizing spirit of the Dutch, who endeavored to keep it wholly to themselves by eradicating it from every other island. We find it stated in Beeton's Dictionary of Universal Information, under the article Banda Islands, that the 4 largest are appropriated to the cultivation of nutmegs, of which about 500,000 pounds are annually produced. The plant, through the enterprise of the British, has now found its way into Penang and Bengkulu, where it flourishes and produces well. It has also been tried to be naturalized in the West Indies, and it bears fruit all the year round. There are two kinds of nutmeg, one wild and long and oval-shaped, the other cultivated and nearly round. The best is firm and hard, and has a strong aromatic odor, with a hot and acrid taste. It ought to be used with caution by those who have paralytic or apoplectic habits. Thickened butter. 379. Ingredients: 1/4 pint of melted butter, No. 376, the yolks of 2 eggs, a little lemon juice. Mode: make the butter quite hot, and be careful not to color it. Well whisk the yolks of the eggs, pour them into the butter, beating them all the while. Make the sauce hot over the fire, but do not let it boil. Add a squeeze of lemon juice. Melted butter made with milk. 380. Ingredients: 1 teaspoonful of flour, 2 ounces butter, 1/3 pint of milk, a few grains of salt. Mode: mix the butter and flour smoothly together on a plate. Put it into a lined saucepan and pour in the milk. Keep stirring it, one way, over a sharp fire. Let it boil quickly for a minute or two, and it is ready to serve. This is a very good foundation for onion, lobster, or oyster sauce. Using milk instead of water makes it look so much whiter and more delicate. Time, altogether, 10 minutes. Average cost for this quantity, 3d. Camp vinegar. 381. Ingredients: 1 head of garlic, 1/2 ounce cayenne, 2 teaspoonfuls of soy, 2 ditto walnut catsup, 1 pint of vinegar, cochineal to color. Mode: slice the garlic and put it, with all the above ingredients, into a clean bottle. Let it stand to infuse for a month, when strain it off quite clear, and it will be fit for use. Keep it in small bottles well sealed to exclude the air. Average cost for this quantity, 8d. Caper sauce for boiled mutton. 382. Ingredients: 1/2 pint of melted butter, No. 376, 3 tablespoonfuls of capers or nasturtiums, 1 tablespoonful of their liquor. Mode: chop the capers twice or thrice, and add them with their liquor to 1/2 pint of melted butter, made very smoothly. Keep stirring well, let the sauce just simmer, and serve in a tureen. Pickled nasturtium pods are fine flavored, and by many are eaten in preference to capers. They make an excellent sauce. Time, 2 minutes to simmer. Average cost for this quantity, 8d. Sufficient to serve with a leg of mutton. Caper sauce for fish. 383. Ingredients: 1/2 pint of melted butter, No. 376, 3 dessertspoonfuls of capers, 1 dessertspoonful of their liquor, a small piece of glaze, if at hand. This may be dispensed with. 1/4 teaspoonful of salt, ditto for pepper, 1 tablespoonful of anchovy essence. Mode: cut the capers across once or twice, but do not chop them fine. Put them in a saucepan with 1/2 pint of good melted butter, and add all the other ingredients. Keep stirring the whole until it just simmers, when it is ready to serve. Time, 1 minute to simmer. Average cost for this quantity, 5d. Sufficient to serve with skate or 2 or 3 slices of salmon. Illustration: the caper. Capers. These are the unopened buds of a low-trailing shrub which grows wild among the crevices of the rocks of Greece, as well as in northern Africa. The plant, however, has come to be cultivated in the south of Europe. After being pickled in vinegar and salt, they are imported from Sicily, Italy, and the south of France. The best are from Toulon. A substitute for caper sauce. 384. Ingredients: 1/2 pint of melted butter, No. 376, 2 tablespoonfuls of cut parsley, 1/2 teaspoonful of salt, 1 tablespoonful of vinegar. Mode: boil the parsley slowly to let it become a bad color. Cut, but do not chop it fine. Add to it 1/2 pint of smoothly made melted butter, with salt and vinegar in the above proportions. Boil up and serve. Time, 2 minutes to simmer. Average cost for this quantity, 3d. Pickled capsicums, 385. Ingredients: vinegar, 1/4 ounce of pounded mace, and 1/4 ounce of grated nutmeg to each quart brine. Mode: gather the pods with the stalks on before they turn red. Slit them down the side with a small pointed knife, and remove the seeds only. Put them in a strong brine for 3 days, changing it every morning. Then take them out, lay them on a cloth with another one over them, until they are perfectly free from moisture. Boil sufficient vinegar to cover them, with mace and nutmeg in the above proportions. Put the pods in a jar, pour over the vinegar when cold, and exclude them from the air by means of a wet bladder tied over. Cayenne vinegar or essence of cayenne, 386. Ingredients: 1/2 ounce of cayenne pepper, 1/2 pint of strong spirit, or 1 pint of vinegar. Mode: put the vinegar or spirit into a bottle with the above proportion of cayenne, and let it steep for a month, when strain off and bottle for use. This is excellent seasoning for soups or sauces, but must be used very sparingly. Celery sauce for boiled turkey, poultry, etc. 387. Ingredients: 6 heads of celery, 1 pint of white stock, No. 107, 2 blades of mace, 1 small bunch of savory herbs, thickening of butter and flour, or arrowroot, 1/2 pint of cream, lemon juice. Mode: boil the celery in salt and water until tender, and cut into pieces 2 inches long. Put the stock into a stewpan with the mace and herbs, and let it simmer for ½ hour to extract their flavor. Then strain the liquor, add the celery and a thickening of butter kneaded with flour, or, what is still better, with arrowroot. Just before serving, put in the cream, boil it up, and squeeze in a little lemon juice. If necessary, add a seasoning of salt and white pepper. Time: 25 minutes to boil the celery. Average cost, 1s. 3d. Sufficient this quantity for a boiled turkey. This sauce may be made brown by using gravy instead of white stock, and flavoring it with mushroom ketchup or Harvey's sauce. Illustration: arrowroot. Arrowroot. This nutritious fecula is obtained from the roots of a plant which is cultivated in both the East and West Indies. When the roots are about a year old, they are dug up, and, after being well washed, are beaten to a pulp, which is afterwards, by means of water, separated from the fibrous part. After being passed through a sieve, once more washed, and then suffered to settle, the sediment is dried in the sun, when it has become arrowroot. The best is obtained from the West Indies, but a large quantity of what is sold in London is adulterated with potato starch. As a means of knowing arrowroot when it is good, it may be as well to state that the genuine article, when formed into a jelly, will remain firm for 3 or 4 days, whilst the adulterated will become as thin as milk in the course of 12 hours. Celery sauce, a more simple recipe. 388. Ingredients: 4 heads of celery, ½ pint of melted butter, made with milk, No. 380, 1 blade of pounded mace, salt and white pepper to taste. Mode: wash the celery, boil it in salt and water till tender, and cut it into pieces 2 inches long. Make ½ pint melted butter by recipe No. 380. Put in the celery, pounded mace, and seasoning. Simmer for 3 minutes, when the sauce will be ready to serve. Time: 25 minutes to boil the celery. Average cost, 6d. Sufficient this quantity for a boiled fowl. Celery vinegar, 389. Ingredients: 1/4 ounce of celery seed, 1 pint of vinegar. Mode: crush the seed by pounding it in a mortar. Boil the vinegar, and when cold, pour it to the seed. Let it infuse for a fortnight, when strain and bottle off for use. This is frequently used in salads. Chestnut sauce for fowls or turkey, 390. Ingredients: ½ pound of chestnuts, 1/2 pint of white stock, 2 strips of lemon peel, cayenne to taste, 1/4 pint of cream or milk. Mode: Peel off the outside skin of the chestnuts and put them into boiling water for a few minutes. Take off the thin inside peel and put them into a saucepan with the white stock and lemon peel, and let them simmer for 1½ hour or until the chestnuts are quite tender. Rub the whole through a hair sieve with a wooden spoon, add seasoning and the cream, let it just simmer but not boil, and keep stirring all the time. Serve very hot and quickly. If milk is used instead of cream, a very small quantity of thickening may be required. That, of course, the cook will determine. Time, altogether, nearly 2 hours. Average cost, 8d. Sufficient, this quantity, for a turkey. Brown chestnut sauce. 391. Ingredients: ½ pound of chestnuts, ½ pint of stock No. 105, 2 lumps of sugar, 4 tablespoons of Spanish sauce. See sauces. Mode: prepare the chestnuts as in the foregoing recipe, by scalding and peeling them. Put them in a stewpan with the stock and sugar, and simmer them till tender. When done, add Spanish sauce in the above proportion, and rub the whole through a tammy. Keep this sauce rather liquid, as it is liable to thicken. Time, 1½ hour to simmer the chestnuts. Average cost, 8d. Bengal sauce for making mango chutney. 392. Ingredients: 1½ pounds of moist sugar, 3/4 pound of salt, 1/4 pound of garlic, 1/4 pound of onions, 3/4 pound of powdered ginger, 1/4 pound of dried chilies, 3/4 pound of mustard seed, 3/4 pound of stoned raisins, 2 bottles of best vinegar, 30 large, unripe, sour apples. Mode: the sugar must be made into syrup, the garlic, onions, and ginger be finely pounded in a mortar, the mustard seed be washed in cold vinegar, and dried in the sun, the apples be peeled, cored, sliced, and boiled in a bottle and a half of the vinegar. When all this is done, and the apples are quite cold, put them into a large pan, and gradually mix the whole of the rest of the ingredients, including the remaining ½ bottle of vinegar. It must be well stirred until the whole is thoroughly blended, and then put into bottles for use. Tie a piece of wet bladder over the mouths of the bottles after they are well corked. This chutney is very superior to any which can be bought, and one trial will prove it to be delicious. Note: this recipe was given by a native to an English lady, who had long been a resident in India, and who, since her return to her native country, has become quite celebrated amongst her friends for the excellence of this Eastern relish. Illustration: garlic. Garlic. The smell of this plant is generally considered offensive, and it is the most acrimonious in its taste of the whole of the Alliaceous tribe. In 1548 it was introduced to England from the shores of the Mediterranean, where it is abundant, and in Sicily it grows naturally. It was in greater repute with our ancestors than it is with ourselves, although it is still used as a seasoning herb. On the Continent, especially in Italy, it is much used, and the French consider it essential in many made dishes. Chili vinegar. 393. Ingredients: 50 fresh red English chilies, 1 pint of vinegar. Mode: pound or cut the chilies in half, and infuse them in the vinegar for a fortnight, when it will be fit for use. This will be found an agreeable relish to fish, as many people cannot eat it without the addition of an acid and cayenne pepper. Christopher North's sauce for meat or game. 394. Ingredients: 1 glass of port wine, 2 tablespoons of Harvey's sauce, 1 dessertspoonful of mushroom ketchup, ditto of pounded white sugar, 1 tablespoonful of lemon juice, 1/4 teaspoonful of cayenne pepper, ditto of salt. Mode: mix all the ingredients thoroughly together, and heat the sauce gradually, by placing the vessel in which it is made in a saucepan of boiling water. Do not allow it to boil, and serve it directly it is ready. This sauce, if bottled immediately, will keep good for a fortnight, and will be found excellent. Consommé, or white stock, for many sauces. 395. Consommé is made precisely in the same manner as stock No. 107, and for ordinary purposes will be found quite good enough. When, however, a stronger stock is desired, either put in half the quantity of water or double that of the meat. This is a very good foundation for all white sauces. Crab sauce for fish, equal to lobster sauce, 396. Ingredients: 1 crab, salt, pounded mace, and cayenne to taste, half pint of melted butter made with milk, see No. 380. Mode: choose a nice fresh crab, pick all the meat away from the shell, and cut it into small square pieces. Make half pint of melted butter by recipe No. 380. Put in the fish and seasoning, let it gradually warm through, and simmer for 2 minutes. It should not boil. Average cost, 1s. 2d. Cream sauce for fish or white dishes, 397. Ingredients: 1/3 pint of cream, 2 ounces of butter, 1 teaspoonful of flour, salt and cayenne to taste. When liked, a small quantity of pounded mace or lemon juice. Mode: put the butter in a very clean saucepan. Dredge in the flour and keep shaking round till the butter is melted. Add the seasoning and cream and stir the whole till it boils. Let it just simmer for 5 minutes, when add either pounded mace or lemon juice to taste to give it a flavor. Time, 5 minutes to simmer. Average cost for this quantity, 7d. This sauce may be flavored with very finely shredded shallot. End of section 20.